There's a particular moment in every From Software game, a moment you can almost feel in your bones. You've died more times than you care to count. The enemy that stands before you is no longer a mystery. You've memorized the way their shoulders shift before a swing, the fraction of a second between their roar and their strike. You can trace every inch of the arena with your eyes closed, because you've bled on every stone of it. You know you should be frustrated, you know you've been here too long, and yet you feel that strange, unshakable pull to try again. That pull is the beating heart of FromSoftware's design philosophy. It's not just about hard games or mechanical mastery. It's about how these games make us care enough to push forward when we could simply walk away. They lure us into worlds that are as hostile as they are beautiful, then challenge us to understand them on their own terms. Every mechanic, every stretch of level design, every fragment of story is part of an unspoken contract. The game will not lie to you, but it also will not hold your hand. In exchange, it offers something far rarer than instant gratification, the slow, hard-earned satisfaction of genuine growth. FromSoftware games are not passive experiences you consume. They are relationships you forge. They resist you at first, sometimes even reject you outright, but as you learn their rhythms, they begin to yield. This isn't a victory handed to you. It's a language learned through trial and error, a trust earned through persistence. The rewards they offer are not just loot or cutscenes, but a transformation in the player themselves. You enter as someone fumbling in the dark. You leave as someone fluent in the world's unspoken rules. And yet, when it's all over, when the credits fade and your character stands alone in a quiet, broken land, there's that other strange pull, the urge to begin again, to step back into the fire, to suffer better, to see what you missed, and to write a new legend for yourself. This is the deeper truth of FromSoftware's design. They have crafted a formula where difficulty becomes dialogue, mystery becomes motivation, and struggle becomes a shared ritual. To understand why we keep coming back, we have to dismantle that formula piece by piece, to see how each element of their design works not in isolation but as part of a seamless whole. FromSoftware's games have been called too hard for more than a decade, but this oversimplification misses the core truth. Difficulty in these games isn't a test to keep people out. It's the medium through which the game communicates. It is not an arbitrary wall to be scaled by brute force. It is a carefully structured language you must learn to speak, one deliberate encounter at a time. This language is built on patterns, repetition, and clarity. Every enemy, from the smallest hollow soldier to the largest god-slaying boss, telegraphs their intentions. Their attacks are not random flurries of damage. They have rhythm and grammar. A knight's overhead swing comes after a distinct shoulder shift. A beast's lunge follows a roar that's held just long enough to make you roll too early if you panic. At first, you read these incorrectly, just as you might misinterpret words in a new language. But as you fight, fail, and try again, you begin to anticipate rather than react. FromSoftware designs death not as punishment, but as a feedback loop. When you fall to a boss, you are never returned to a blank slate. Your knowledge survives, even if your progress doesn't. That knowledge persistence is central to the loop. You learn spacing, stamina management, and timing through repeated exposure. Stamina, in Dark Souls and Elden Ring, becomes the punctuation that shapes every sentence you write in combat. Attacking, dodging, and blocking all pull from the same bar, meaning you must constantly weigh your options. Push too far and you'll be left winded, unable to defend yourself. Conserve too much and you'll never break your opponent's guard. In Sekiro, stamina is replaced by posture, but the grammar changes entirely. Now the game demands aggression rather than patience. You cannot simply run in circles waiting for an opening. You must meet your opponent's blows head-on, matching their rhythm until their guard shatters. This change in system shows how FromSoftware's language is flexible. It can use the same core teaching philosophy while shifting the entire conversational tone between games. The studio's early game bosses serve as conversation starters in this language. The Vanguard in Demon's Souls or the Asylum Demon in Dark Souls makes one thing clear. Sometimes you are meant to run, regroup, and return later. Father Gascoigne in Bloodborne teaches two critical phrases, the rally mechanic and the visceral counter, in the most brutal way possible. He forces you into close quarters where dodging alone won't save you. Genichiro Ashina in Sekiro is perhaps the most explicit example. His duel is essentially a full syllabus of the game's combat, demanding that you master deflects, Mikiri counters, and jump counters in rapid succession. The beauty of this system is that it's self-balancing. FromSoftware doesn't offer a traditional difficulty slider. Instead, they give you tools that allow you to adjust the challenge organically. You can grind for levels and better gear, respec your stats, summon allies, or even change your build entirely. In Elden Ring, this flexibility is at its peak. If a boss walls you in, you can turn your back and explore an entirely different corner of the world. Returning stronger and wiser, this ensures that the language remains challenging but never insurmountable. Crucially, the difficulty always remains fair, or at least it strives to. Hitboxes are generally precise, damage patterns are consistent, enemies obey the same rules as you. There are moments where the camera can betray you or input buffering can cause frustration, but these are exceptions rather than the rule. Most of the time when you fail, it's because you misread the conversation. You rolled when you should have blocked, attacked when you should have waited. By the time you've been playing for hours, you realize you're no longer reacting blindly. You've learned to read an enemy's sentence and reply in kind. Combat has gone from chaos to conversation. And once you become fluent, the language itself is what keeps you coming back, because you know that the next enemy, the next boss, will speak it in a way you've never heard before, and you can't resist learning how to respond. FromSoftware's worlds are not simply backdrops for combat. They are living, decaying ecosystems with histories that are felt rather than told. If most games are novels, FromSoftware's are poetry, fragmentary, ambiguous, and deliberately incomplete. The studio refuses to hand players a neatly bound narrative. Instead, it scatters its lore like ash in the wind, letting you gather what fragments you can. This is not a limitation, it is a philosophy. In a typical 8AA RPG, exposition is a flood, NPCs monologue about the world's history, cutscenes fill in every gap, and quest markers push you toward your next objective with absolute clarity. FromSoftware rejects this hand-holding. They understand something that many studios overlook. Silence is not emptiness. Silence can be space. Space for the player to breathe, to imagine, to participate in the act of storytelling. You notice it first in the landscapes. The collapsed bridges, the petrified forests, the half-buried statues staring blankly at a horizon they will never reach. Nothing tells you explicitly why these ruins exist, but they hum with implication. In Dark Souls, the crumbling walls of Anor Londo don't just signal architectural decay, they suggest a fall from divine grace, a city whose golden age has long passed. In Bloodborne, the crooked streets and towering cathedrals of Yharnam whisper of a religion turned inward, obsessed with transcendence, until its prayers curdled into madness. NPCs speak in riddles, often telling you as much in what they withhold as in what they reveal. Some may lie, others speak truths they themselves do not fully understand. A shopkeeper might make a throwaway comment about the old lords or those who came before, fragments that lodge in your mind, until you stumble across a cathedral half buried in the wilderness, and the pieces begin to align. Yet, even when they do, there's no final page to the puzzle. FromSoftware leaves negative space in its stories, trusting the player to project meaning into the gaps. This trust is what fuels the game's most dedicated communities. In the absence of a canonical guide, players become historians, archaeologists, and theologians of their own accord. Lore hunters pore over item descriptions, cross-reference environmental clues, and debate the order of events for years after release. Even the smallest details, the rust pattern on a knight's armor, the way a throne sits slightly askew, can launch hour-long discussions on forums and video essays. The genius here is that FromSoftware understands a paradox. The less you explicitly tell the player, the more ownership they feel over the story they uncover. The narrative becomes theirs because they had to work for it. You don't hear the history of Lordran, you excavate it, and in doing so, you form a more intimate connection with it than you could through any scripted cutscene. Silence is also used to control emotional tone. In these games, quiet is never comfortable. It's the tension between danger and discovery, A stretch of eerie stillness after a long fight doesn't reassure you. It makes you wonder what's watching from the shadows. That feeling, that hair-raising uncertainty, is part of the immersion. You're not just playing in the world. You're inhabiting a place that feels larger than you, indifferent to you, and older than you can comprehend. Even the music, or lack thereof, plays into this restraint. Outside of boss battles, the soundscape is often barren. The crunch of gravel, the distant drip of water, the low moan of wind over desolate plains. When music does arrive, it's jarring, monumental, often paired with moments of confrontation or revelation. This sparseness makes those musical cues hit harder, anchoring them as emotional milestones. By building worlds through implication, FromSoftware creates spaces that feel less like game levels and more like myths you've wandered into midway through. You're not the hero of the story in the traditional sense. You're an intruder in a place whose narrative has been unfolding for centuries before you arrived and will continue long after you're gone. The game doesn't need to tell you this outright. You can feel it in every weathered stone, every rusted weapon, every hollow gaze of an NPC who once believed the world could be saved. This approach may frustrate those looking for a clear, linear plot, but for others, it becomes a defining reason to return. Because when the game refuses to give you all the answers, the world never stops whispering questions. And questions, more than rewards, more than victories, are what keep us walking forward into the fog. At the heart of FromSoftware's design lies a cycle that is both brutally simple and endlessly engaging. Every step forward demands that you stake something, and every victory tempts you to stake more. It's a loop of tension and release, failure and triumph, that teaches you not only how to survive in these worlds, but how to gamble with them. The most obvious expression of this loop is in the soul currency system. Souls in Dark Souls, blood echoes in Bloodborne, runes in Elden Ring. Everything you defeat drops this currency. It is both your means of progression and your Achilles heel, because when you die, you drop it all. To get it back, you must return to the place of your death without dying again. This transforms every trip back into a miniature drama. You are no longer exploring for the sake of curiosity alone. You're carrying the weight of your own potential. That's the genius. Risk isn't abstract here, it's tangible. You can feel it in your pulse when you're far from a checkpoint with 80,000 runes in your pocket and enemies breathing down your neck. You begin to weigh your options in real time. Push deeper for more rewards or retreat to safety. That tension is the engine of the loop. Playing too cautiously may slow your growth. Playing too greedily risks sending you back to zero. But the loop extends far beyond currency. Consider the Estus flask, or blood vials, or spirit emblems. These are finite healing or ability resources. Every sip or use is a wager. I will need this later more than I need it now. Spend too much too soon and you may limp into the boss arena underprepared. Hoard too much and you might die with them unused. The ultimate act of wasted potential. Even combat itself is structured around risk-taking. Every attack animation locks you in place for a fraction of a second, a vulnerability window. When you swing, you're effectively betting, I can land this hit without being punished. Light attacks carry smaller stakes. Heavy attacks are the equivalent of going all in. In Bloodborne, the rally mechanic, regaining lost health by counterattacking immediately, tilts this risk-reward balance aggressively toward offense. You are rewarded for pushing into danger rather than pulling away from it, creating a combat rhythm that feels like high-speed brinkmanship. FromSoftware cleverly layers narrative stakes into this loop as well. Quests often require you to make decisions without full information, betting your outcome on incomplete understanding. An NPC might offer you help at the cost of trusting their motives. Sparing or killing someone may ripple consequences you can't foresee. Even the endings often feel like gambles. You choose a path knowing it will close others forever. The reward being the satisfaction, or haunting doubt, of having made the leap. What makes this loop so compelling is that it's self-generating. Every victory emboldens you to take bigger risks next time. You survived that brutal stretch of enemies with a fortune of souls? Maybe you can handle just one more room before heading back. And when the gamble pays off, the dopamine rush is magnified precisely because you know how easily it could have gone wrong. When it doesn't pay off, the punishment is sharp but not cruel. You've lost your spoils, but the knowledge remains. You now know the layout of that dungeon, the timing of that boss's attacks, the shortcut that bypasses the most dangerous section. This ensures that failure never feels like pure loss. It is part of the same loop, feeding into future rewards. In a way, the entire FromSoftware experience could be boiled down to this dance between fear and greed. The games dangle a treasure, be it a pile of souls, a legendary weapon, or a tantalizing bit of lore, and then dare you to reach for it. The further you reach, the more the ground shifts beneath you, and whether you fall or stand tall, the act of reaching becomes irresistible. It's why, after losing everything, players so often dive right back in. The loop doesn't break on failure. It resets, whispering, "Next time, you'll win bigger." In FromSoftware's worlds, bosses are not just difficulty spikes. They are emotional events. They are not obstacles you get past, so much as moments you live through, moments that become anchors in your memory of the game. Ask any Soulsborne player to recall a boss fight, and you won't just get a name. You'll get a story, the setting, the music, the hours of failed attempts, the breathless final blow. These are not disposable encounters, they are rites of passage. The design of a FromSoftware boss encounter is deliberate in how it builds anticipation. The approach is often as important as the fight itself. Narrow corridors, ominous arenas, or sudden fog gates create a feeling that you've crossed into a different realm, a place where the rules of the normal world no longer apply. The camera might pan to reveal the scale of your opponent, or the music might shift from ambient silence to a full orchestral assault. The game is telling you, this is a moment worth remembering. Mechanically, bosses serve as intense examinations of the skills you've developed so far. They are the game's way of asking, have you been paying attention? Every dodge, parry, stamina check, and positional read you've practiced in smaller encounters comes into sharp focus here. But FromSoftware doesn't design these fights as mere mechanical tests. They give each boss a personality, a rhythm, and, crucially, a narrative presence. Take Ornstein and Smaug in Dark Souls. Mechanically, they force you to manage two radically different attack patterns at once, pushing your spatial awareness to its limits. But emotionally, they are the gatekeepers of Anor Londo, the final barrier to the city's heart. Their presence tells you something about the world's hierarchy, its champions, and its sense of history. Or consider Lady Maria of the Astral Clock Tower in Bloodborne. The fight is elegant, almost mournful, her movements balletic rather than brutish. Mechanically, she tests your mastery of the rally system and close-range aggression, but thematically, she embodies the tragedy of the Healing Church's legacy. The fight isn't just difficult, it's beautiful, and the beauty deepens its impact. These bosses also act as narrative punctuation marks. They divide the game into emotional chapters. The early bosses you struggled against when you were weak, the mid-game titans that proved your growth, and the final battles that tested the full sum of your abilities. When you think back on a Soulsborne game, you don't usually remember the exact order of areas you traveled through. You remember the bosses you conquered, because they are where tension, challenge, and storytelling converge most powerfully. FromSoftware also knows the power of surprise in boss design. Some fights are telegraphed hours in advance, their arenas looming in the distance or hinted at by NPC dialogue. Others drop without warning, a dragon swooping down mid-bridge, a seemingly harmless enemy revealing a monstrous second form. This unpredictability keeps the player in a state of alert engagement, where every encounter carries the possibility of escalation. And then there's the music, perhaps the most overtly emotional element of these battles. Boss themes in FromSoftware games are almost never background filler. They are scored like cinematic climaxes, with swelling strings, haunting choirs, or driving percussion that mirrors the boss's personality. Think of the tragic choir that accompanies Sister Frida, or the almost hopeful swell in Gwyn's theme. These compositions burn the memory of the fight into your senses long after the controller is set down. But the most important thing about FromSoftware bosses is what they do to you. They make you feel small, then capable, then triumphant. They condense hours of exploration, preparation, and failure into a single cathartic release. And because the road to victory is never guaranteed, because the risk-reward loop and difficulty as language are always in play, the victory feels entirely yours. No cutscene hands you glory. You earn it in sweat, reflex, and stubborn persistence. That's why these fights stay with you. They aren't just checkpoints in the game. They're checkpoints in your own journey through it. Proof that you have changed, that you have adapted, and that you have overcome something that once seemed insurmountable. Every boss is a scar you carry proudly, a story you can tell. And perhaps that's the greatest magic of all. Long after the details of the maps fade, long after you've forgotten the exact stats of your weapon, you'll still remember the trembling in your hands when the boss fell, and the quiet, disbelieving grin that followed. FromSoftware's respect for player agency runs deep. Objectives are rarely spoon-fed. The game trusts you to explore, experiment, and make mistakes. Builds are an expression of personal identity. A faith-based lightning wielder, a dual katana bleed assassin, a hulking strength build, or a nimble parry master. The non-linear structure, especially in Elden Ring, allows for an incredible range of player-driven pacing. Entire regions, from the underground wonders of Siofra River to the nightmare ascent of Miquella's Halig Tree, can be missed entirely, making their discovery feel uniquely yours. Questlines are dynamic and often missable, adding to the sense that the world moves with or without you. The multiplayer layer, both synchronous and asynchronous, transforms the solitary act of play into a collective ritual. Player messages on the ground can be helpful, misleading, or downright comedic. Ghostly silhouettes remind you that others walk the same path, while bloodstains replay their mistakes, turning each death into a silent warning. Invasions bring human unpredictability into the mix, while co-op summons turn solitary victories into shared celebrations. In Elden Ring, spirit ashes create a form of solo co-op, letting you summon companions without breaking the solitary feel of the game. Across all titles, these systems foster a sense of belonging, that you are part of a larger, ongoing struggle. All of these systems, the difficulty language, the world building, the risk-reward tension, the boss design, the freedom, and the multiplayer culture, combine into an emotional arc that is rare in gaming. You start as a stranger fumbling through an unforgiving world. You suffer, you adapt, and you grow. By the end, you are fluent in its unspoken rules. The melancholic tone of these worlds means victories are often bittersweet. Bosses die with tragic finality, landscapes crumble, and endings are as much about loss as they are about triumph. This emotional aftertaste lingers long after the game ends, pulling you back for another run, a new build, or simply the desire to see the world with wiser eyes. In the end, we keep coming back to FromSoftware's games because they respect us enough to challenge us. They trust us to learn, endure, and discover. Every death teaches us another word in their unspoken language. Every shortcut is a paragraph of spatial storytelling. Every boss conquered is a chapter in our personal legend. When the credits roll, we are not finished. We are initiated, ready to return, read the world more deeply, and above all, suffer better. FromSoftware's games are more than just titles we play. They are worlds we inhabit, challenges we endure, and stories we uncover piece by piece. From the rhythm of combat to the whispers of a ruined landscape, from the sting of death to the triumph of victory, every element is meticulously crafted to pull us back, again and again. The struggle is real, the reward is earned, and the worlds they build linger in our minds long after we set the controller down. If you've enjoyed diving deep into the philosophy behind these unforgettable experiences, don't forget to like this video. Leave a comment sharing your favorite FromSoftware moment, and subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you'll stay updated on everything Souls-related, whether it's hidden lore, tips for tackling brutal bosses, or deep explorations of the worlds we can't stop returning to. Your support doesn't just help the channel grow, it keeps this community alive, a place where fans of challenging, beautifully crafted games can share, discuss, and celebrate what makes these experiences so unforgettable. So join the journey, embrace the challenge, and let's keep exploring the hauntingly beautiful worlds of FromSoftware together. I'm your host, AshenLord. Until the next one.